Welcome to our full-time missionary training videos. These videos are designed to help you get a firm, broad understanding of what it means to become full-time missionaries in the foreign lands. These videos will be a massive blessing and it will help you get started right in the mission field. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because what we're going to do is be continually uploading content that will be valuable to you to help you in your work in the foreign lands. Also, if you're somebody that's wanting to get into the mission field, but you really don't know how and you need help, please contact us. There's a description in this video and we provide the link to do so. We would love to walk you through the process. Also, we have a Facebook group. That link is in there as well. That Facebook group is missionaries around the world collaborating and networking together, strengthening one another in the work that we're doing in the foreign lands. And then one final note, this whole entire series is based off of a book, Pursuing the Call, with Danny Lamastra. He's a missionary in El Salvador. I highly recommend you getting a copy of that. And again, thank you so much for being here. We pray that these videos are a blessing to you. Thank you. Hey, Stephen, thank you so much for joining on the Zoom call, this missionary training. Just to let everybody know that you are a missionary with Church of God, and now you guys are back in the States at this time, and more or less you're still running the mission organization, you're still working from state, you're still raising funds and so forth, and I've known you from Honduras, so you and I can kind of relate in some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So again, thanks a lot for joining on this training video.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure.
Okay. We're going to be talking about two different types of culture shock. This is one video. The other one is doing culturally minded informed ministry. So this one, we're going to be dealing with dealing with culture shock because it's something that you have to deal with prior to getting to the field and once you get on the field. It's not about doing ministry with a cultural mindset. It's just basically dealing with the shock of the type of culture that you're going to be in and living. And you have to get that understanding. Steve and I are going to just cover the surface here. And we highly recommend that you go out and seek books that will help you further understand doing ministry or dealing with culture shock. Because again, this is just going to be just barely covering the surface. There's no way that we can cover this subject in depth in a 45-minute video. So, Stephen, because you and I come from Honduras, can you agree with me that their value system is totally different than the value system that you and I deal with that we came from in the United States?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now there are some similarities, but they're one kind of funny one and very obvious one just in Honduras that you'll find out real quick is the time. There's a time that you can measure events by, then there's the time that is on your clock. Here in America, by the clock. If we say 7, it's going to start at 7. There in Honduras, if you say 7, might be 7:30, might be 7:45, might be 8 o'clock. It's just when everybody, that's when we'll start. So yeah, that's just one kind of funny one that you'll learn real quick. But there's also several more too. But yes, there's definitely different core values.
Yeah, you before we started the video, we were talking about the weddings and stuff. And my daughter, she married a Honduran here, and the wedding started was scheduled to start at 4 o'clock, and the groom's mother wasn't even there. And so my daughter gets on the phone and asks her, "Where are you?" And she says, "Oh, I'm in another town getting my dress altered." And she's like, "What? You're supposed to be here." And anyway, the wedding didn't even start until 7. So, I mean, those are obviously, like you said, the funny ones. But, and for someone to sit here and watch this video and go, "Oh, if it's just a time thing, I can deal with that." Steve and I again, we just brought up something that was funny. The thing that the book that this whole entire video series is based off of. Adjusting to different cultures requires skills. And again, it's not something that we should take lightly. That you're just going to go ahead and just say, okay, I'm going to move my family there. I'm not going to have any understanding of the culture prior to there, because obviously when you're trying to go through that culture reset, so to speak, it can bring pressures upon the family in your ministry. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely. And I'll hit on that note, especially if you don't study, if you go into it blind. And that's like what we did. We were young and full of faith, and we thought that's all we needed. And I'm not taking anything away from faith. We need faith, but God gives us wisdom. And that's wisdom to go and study different things, because, some of these, as we're talking different values, like you said, we mentioned a funny one, but you go to some different culture and you can offend someone by not knowing their culture and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And when you offend someone, it's going to be very hard to then try to preach the gospel to them when they're offended by you. So it's definitely a pay off if somebody just takes a couple months, whatever it may be, and just study that culture just a little bit. That way that you won't have maybe as many of these pressures come, because we already deal with enough pressure in ministry, much less the culture as well.
Yeah. And, a lot of books that I read, one thing that they highly suggest that you do is try to connect with people from that culture. So, I mean, if you're going to Central America, I mean, I'm not going to say that all countries in Central America has the same culture, but I mean, for the most part, there's similarities. But they recommend you to friend people of that certain country to understand them more, so to talk to them, to do type of social gatherings and things like that. And then also they discuss about the importance of trying to, I don't know about you, but I came to this country multiple times before I became full-time missionary. So I began to understand the things that I was going to be dealing with more so. I mean, there was times I was here 3 months at a time or 2 months at a time. So it was more of a kind of a softer landing, so to speak. That's probably the best way to say it. So, right here it says, when you go through culture shock, every day can be a struggle, and even most mundane tasks can be challenging. I don't know about you, what type of ministry that you had, but like, for example, just to do a construction project, you can't just go to one store and get the stuff. You have to go to like 15 different stores. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, just a little bit. You have to go to like 15 different stores, and like you'll go to one store and you might find the certain type of thing that you need, but they only have two. Then you got to go to another 5 other stores. So with us on our American mentality, it's like we're used to just walking in Home Depot, and they might have like 5 items, and you go, well, I need some more. Oh yeah, we got that in the back. And they just go in the back and get it, But it's like with us, we're thinking, hey, in 30 minutes, I could be at the store and be back, and then we can get this project done. But like the culture here in Honduras, it may take you a week to gather the things that you need just to do the project.
Yes. I laughed when we were talking about this video, and you said, I won't be free. I got to go to the bank for the rest of the day. And I laughed because I remembered the process that the bank is.
Yeah.
I try to tell people that the bank in Honduras is like the equivalent of like a DMV, immigration, just your tax service. You lump all those together, and that's the bank in Honduras. And yeah, I know that feeling of going to this place, even buying groceries sometimes. All right, well, this grocery store has this, and that grocery store has that, and they have the best vegetables over there to go get that. So, I mean, it would definitely help, kind of what you said, if somebody could take those short trips. And that's what I tell people. We were there for a week at a time. We went 2 times for a week long. But I would tell people, kind of like you did, maybe go there a month. That way you can just scope out how life truly is. Like, okay, like where we lived, when our car broke down, we didn't have a car. Moto taxis didn't come. That's taxis, like a taxi here, what we would call it here in the States. They didn't come to our church where we were at. That's where we lived, right behind the church. So I had to walk into town. And that was terrible in Honduras heat. And that was something I didn't know, and I really wasn't prepared for. But I was like, well, I got to go get groceries. I can catch one coming back, but they don't come to the house. I'd have to. I eventually friended a couple of them, and then I called them from then on. But like I said, it's just little things like that that you don't think of, that you think, well, the whole world's kind of like this or like that. Well, it's not. And like I said, those trips like that can really help off just you helping prepare yourself and your mind and your spirit of, okay, this is the difficulty I'm going to face in this task or that task.
You get used to this. And like you said, you prepare your mind. But the thing that a lot of missionaries deal with is that they are coming with a mindset. And I've talked to missionaries prior to come to the Ville. I mean, they've got this bravado attitude, like, I'm just going to go and conquer. I'm just going to go and be victorious. I'm going to win souls to Jesus. I'm going to win this whole nation to Jesus, And I mean, look, it's exciting that people are excited for Jesus and to go do this work for Jesus. But with our American mindset, we have this mindset that, hey, we've got this 10-step process that we're going to go through, and we'll have this thing knocked out within a month, and we're just going to be so victorious. But once they get here and they begin to combat the culture, probably shouldn't say combat, but deal with the culture, all of a sudden it just starts combating their mind that they're not going to be able to fulfill these promises that they feel like those that are supporting them are demanding of them to fulfill. And now, because they're not making headway like they should be, then they could be going into depression. They could be going into a lot of struggles. It could add struggles to their marriage. It could add struggles to their family. So again, it's something that you have to understand this culture and then prepare a reality of really what ministry is going to be like prior to getting to the field. And again, I think it comes down to, like Stephen was saying, taking multiple trips, talking to people of the culture, understanding the culture more so. I'll tell you one thing, it's not really dealing with culture, but it kind of helped me understand a little bit more so. I used to be in a real estate business in the United States, and I would buy homes and then I would rehab them and flip them, so to speak. And I had a lady in our church that worked for me, and she was from Guatemala. And I mean, she was a great worker. She did a great job. But I bought this not brand new, but I bought this home, and she met me over there, and it was a disaster. I mean, it was just total disaster. We literally filled up a dumpster full of stuff that was left in the house. I mean, it was a disaster. And so I was telling her, I spent like 30 minutes trying to explain to her all the things that we were going to do to this house, because I could see that vision. I could see that vision of what this house is going to look like, all painted, all the floors done, new kitchen, the whole entire thing. And as I was talking, I kind of noticed that she was like looking at me like with her, like this starry eyes, like this deer staring into the lights. And I was just like, what's wrong? And she says, us Guatemalans don't think this way. I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, we can't think this way. We can't, foresee things like what you're seeing, and it's confusing me. And I mean, that's what she said. And being here, I'm not saying that there ain't people in Honduras that has a vision for the future, but I'm just saying, as a whole of their culture, they don't think that way. They don't prepare and think for the future. So you have to actually, when you do ministry, you have to actually think around those type of things, and it's sometimes it can be frustrating while you're trying to project something, a vision of what you're wanting to do with those individuals that you're working with in that culture. And you have to somehow try to get them to see that. So again, it's just things that you deal with on a constant basis. Go ahead.
I was just, one of my example that I've had, kind of you're talking about with the Guatemalan woman, is when we first moved here, our American mindset is, we kind of work as a team, and I've been in ministry for a while before we came to Honduras, and the lead pastor there at our church, he had a leadership, and we would discuss things, we'd go over it. And then I found out, in Honduras, when there's a leader, he's the leader, and everybody just does what he does. Even me, like I was the foreigner, I was the outside person, but once I kind of won their trust and learned the language and everything, we would just do projects like around the house or around the church, something like that. And the guys that were helping me would be like, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" I'd be like, "I don't know. However y'all want to do it, we'll do it." And they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no. You're the boss." I was like, "No, really, it doesn't matter. I'm easy going. I'll do it." And they're like, "No, no, just tell us what to do. Just tell us."
Yeah.
So there's not there. As here in America, we say there's more chiefs than there is Indians. We don't have to worry about that there. There's they want one chief, they want one person in charge, and you just tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that. But what you were saying about learning the culture and coming here and having these goals and not meeting them. What a lot of people do is they make unrealistic goals and they have unrealistic expectations. And when we don't meet those goals or meet those expectations, we look at ourselves as almost a failure.
Yeah.
That God, I let you down. I said I was going to do this. Now I'm not. And like I said, you hit it perfectly when you said, what are my supporters going to think? Because we made all these big promises. And that's what I tell people. When you go to the mission field, you don't make any promises until you are 1,000% sure. Because once again, you got to know language and culture. You got to know how life works and to do things that don't, and especially don't make promises until you get there. The only promise you can make is I'm going to serve the Lord, and however ministry opens up will open up. But that's what a lot of missionaries deal with, is this depression and just feeling almost worthless because they didn't meet an expectation. They didn't, because we have our own expectation, then we have the sponsors' expectation, then we have the nationals, whatever country we move to, we have their expectation of us. So we have expectations all around us, and we need to use good godly wisdom and not set more expectations on ourselves that are unrealistic. But that'd be a big one that I would highly suggest as people, is just don't set those unrealistic expectations of we're going to win at least 10,000 people to the Lord, or we're going to build 50 churches in 1 year. Just start small and then let God do the rest. Only he can give the growth. He said some plant, some water, and he gives the growth. So don't get ahead of God, and just don't set those unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm. Now, different cultures have different communication styles. I've witnessed that here, where Americans are just abrupt and we're just to the point. We don't like the fluff. I don't like fluff. I just like, hey, I need you to go to the store, maybe call somebody. You go, hey, look, Pastor Jose, I need you to go to the store, pick this up, and then be at my house by 11. I'll see you then. Bye. That's American. But with like a Honduran pastor, you would call him and say, buenos dias, how are you doing? How's your wife? How's the kids? Did you get a good night's sleep? I'm not joking. These are things you have to do, because they will think that you are very rude by just calling and saying, hey, how you doing? Just go over to this store over here. They've got the stuff ready, pick it up. And, they would find that extremely rude. So just even the way you communicate, one thing that I've noticed in some of our meetings, as much as I try to get them to show up on time, the meeting starts at 8:30. Invariably, there's going to be someone that comes in at 8:50, and there's going to be, 50 people sitting there in their chairs. They're going to go to, I'm not going to say to every one of them, but they're going to go to that whole row and shake everybody's hand as they're going in to the meeting. Now, we as Americans would find that very rude. Like, we'd be like, you're interrupting my meeting, but to them, it would be rude for them not to shake people's hands and say hello, even though they're late to the meeting. So again, just different ways of communicating. Have you dealt with anything like that as far as communication?
Definitely. I don't know if I offended anybody or made them mad, but I'm from the South, and even more, I'm from Appalachia. I'm right there in the mountains. So when you said when people call, that's how we do here. Like, we call them, how's your mama? How they doing? And it's just there's a lot of people, as I tell Candace, like if I'm going over to somebody's house, like I'll just tell her, like, it's going to be a while. Like I'm just going to do one thing, but I know they're going to talk like this. So I was kind of used to that. But even like in our culture or mine, like if I needed something from, if I was friends with somebody, if I needed something, I'd just send them a message at middle of the day, whatever. But kind of like what you were saying, you're just to the point. Hey man, can I come over here and borrow this, or can you come over here and do this today? But and it goes to what you're saying. But in Honduras, didn't matter what time of day. It could be in the morning. They would go, good morning. How are you? God bless you. I hope your day is going well. And then they would always have a greeting. And then I learned that I was like, I probably need to start greeting them the way they're greeting me.
Yeah.
And so then I do the same thing. Good afternoon, Pastor. I hope your day's doing well. So, God bless you. And so, yeah, I mean, there's just little things like that would go a long ways because, us Americans, we already have kind of a negative outlook sometimes on life, like other countries looking in on us. So it would do good that we could kind of diminish that we could do everything in our power, not to let somebody look at us in a negative way because of our. Now they may look at us different countries of our Christianity, but just because of our culture, we need to learn to just put the American mindset down sometimes and not be offended. Like when you said, when those pastors come in late and start talking to everybody and blessing them, God bless you, because that's them. They have to got to greet everybody. So, and then we could get mad and say, just go sit down. You're already late to this meeting. And we'd probably offend that pastor and he may never come back meeting. And, we do more harm to the kingdom than good. So it just goes back to preparing yourselves.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you a funny thing here. We had a pastor come from Michigan and he does a lot of mission work in Africa. And I don't know how we got on the subject, but we were talking about like these Facebook messages that I would get from ministers in Africa. Like I had a friend that was a missionary, went there, and then I posted something on his Facebook or commented or something. All of a sudden I started getting all these friend requests from people in Africa. And, it's like, glory to God in the heavens. And just, I mean, they would just go on and on and on and just, God bless your second born, just on and on. I'm just thinking, who talks like this? And I mean, all their, why would they even message me like this? And it rubs me the wrong way, and he's just like, you got to understand, that's how they are. They will introduce, to their cousin or to their friend. And they do that all the time. And like, we'll have a church service and there might be 10 pastors in the church service. And they will have all the 10 pastors get up and introduce themselves. And they do the same thing. It takes at least 5 minutes for each one to introduce themselves. And it's just the culture. It's not because they're trying to schmooze me to get me to accept their friend request. That's just who they are. So it's just, we got to learn these type of things because again, us Americans, instead of being rubbed the wrong way and getting upset about stuff like this, it's just who they are, it's just how their culture is.
As Americans, as we go, if we're not learning to, learn and kind of be molded into the culture, not, don't pick up all the bad things, but as we talked about, learn the social cues, what to do, what not to do, because, you talked about just how even greeting and talking and just being personal with somebody. Like I said, here in the South, we're laid back most of the time. We're laid back, easygoing type deal. Most of the towns, everybody knows everybody type deal. And then you get people from out of town, like you might get somebody from New York, New Jersey. They're used to the city life and they can be very crude and abrupt and harsh and they don't mean anything by it.
Yeah.
We have a couple in our church and they're great people. But sometimes I'll just look at them and be like, do you not realize how rude you're being right now? Like, that's what I want to tell them. But I'm like, they're just from a different city. They're from a different, even culture with here in America. So that's how I can kind of relate it to go into another land is, if you live in a small town like that and you got people coming from bigger cities, you just see how they act a little different. And sometimes people will want to kind of push them off like, oh, they're just city slickers. That's how they think. So you don't want to take that with you as you're trying to represent Jesus Christ. That's what I'm trying to get to. You don't want somebody's first response or first opinion of you being rude or you being a break.
Yeah.
You want Jesus Christ because you're trying to win the lost there in that country. But
yeah. Now, they talk about like how the community relates to each other. Now, you were in La Entrada. I don't know exactly how that community was, but here at Copandrinas, it's like everybody's a primo. And for those that's watching, he's laughing. He knows what I'm talking about. Primo's cousin in Spanish. And he could actually be your uncle, but he's your primo. Everybody's your primo. And there's a lot of family relation, because I'm in a small community, in a mountainous small community, about 9,000 people. So the just kind of the thing here is that they always say, if you're a gringo, you're not going to win, like a legal battle or whatever. You just might as well give it up because a Honduran's going to win every time. Well, my friend was having a legal issue, and he actually took it to court and won. And everybody, or some people, were shocked. And he asked somebody, said, the problem of it is he's not a Copaneco. And again, what's a Copaneco? It's somebody from Copandrinas. They call him a Copaneco. So he's not a Copaneco. He's somebody from another community that owned this home. And that's why you won, because, you literally truly had a legal case. But if he was a Copaneco, you would have never won. So it's how the community relates to one another. They are truly a family here locally, and like in where we're from in the States, like my daughter, I said, well, who's your neighbor across the hallway? She lived in an apartment house. She says, I don't know. But who's that guy scraping the windows? I mean, it was wintertime. Who's that guy down there scraping the windows? I don't know. I mean, she didn't know anybody in the community. But in Honduras, it's like, in many times, a family will live all in one piece of property. There might be little different homes or different apartments in the building, and over time they just keep on adding more apartments, but the whole entire family lives on one piece of property. And then again, you walk around the community with another Honduran, they're constantly saying, hey, primo, hey, Tio, they're just constantly saying hello because they're all like one big family. And I don't know if you dealt with that in La Entrada, but
it was the land of nicknames. Everybody had a nickname.
Oh,
and
okay.
I couldn't even, I can barely keep up with your names, but nickname. But it was like you said, here in the States, probably in our history, we took the village mentality as well. Just as our culture changed, we kind of just became not really standoffish, but what's mine is mine, and I'm good here in my home. But there in Honduras, it's a village mentality. It takes a village. So even with kids, I found that out real quick. If you're an adult and a kid is around you, you better be watching it because that's one day a kid he didn't almost drown, but we were at a pool and he kind of just fell, and they were just screaming, and I didn't know why they were screaming. They was like, we're screaming for you to pick up the kid. I was like, I didn't even know he was there.
Yeah.
But so they expecting me to watch him because I was an adult and I had my kids around. So it's that village mentality. We know everybody. We're going to treat everybody kind of like family. We're going to give them the nickname cousin because, that's just kind of the relationships they have. And there's different societies around the world that are like that. Then there's different societies like us that, you don't ask me personal questions. You don't get involved. So you really got to know who you're dealing with. Like you can go to Honduras and you can just talk to anybody on the street, but then you might go to some other countries and you don't really talk to anybody unless you really get to know them. But yeah, we definitely had that in La Entrada. We definitely had the primo and the cousin and the whistling all going down the streets.
Yeah. And you were talking about down the street. One thing I noticed really quickly as soon as I got here is that when I'm walking down the street, and it's kind of like you, I walk everywhere here. It's a small community. I walk everywhere. And I noticed right away, they're looking at me in my eyes. They are truly like looking at me in my eyes. I'm like, at first I'm like, what, and then I realized they're expecting me to say hello. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
like here, I mean, you just constantly, you're constantly saying hello, you're constantly greeting people that you don't even know, but you're constantly greeting them. And that's just the culture here. Now, kind of getting into, because I don't want a lot of people make the mistake of watching this video and they go, well, if it's just talking about like saying hi and being nice to people, I can do that. Look, this is just like the icing on the cake. I mean, there's a lot more in depth of what we're trying to get people to see and understand. And again, where you're going may be totally different than what Stephen and I have dealt with, but more or less the experience of dealing with culture shock, it can lead to distress, helplessness, hostility towards the new environment. So there are emotions that you're going to go through. Now, I know that you said you dealt with it more so than I did. Now, I'll say this, I've dealt with it on a lower scale, so to speak, than maybe some other people have. And uh, myself, I think I've dealt with it more so like in the driving, and I've dealt with it more so in just getting angry of the way they drive, getting angry in the way they think, that they'll be like in the far right lane and turn left right in front of you, just things like that. So that would anger me and I would be angry in traffic. And then finally I just had to get used to it and just, blow it off and just learn how they drive and just go with the flow and not get angry because it's not worth it. So you said you dealt with it more so. What are some things that you dealt with in your emotions and things like that?
Right. So when we moved here, we were living on a little house right behind the church where we did ministry. We wasn't the pastors of the church by any means, but the pastor that worked there, that is there at the church, we worked with him and went all around our area of Honduras to help other pastors. But so they had an old building there, and our pastor here in the States, he's a home builder by trade. So he came down there and we just added on a little bit, and it was still only about 500 square foot, but we lived right there. So we were constantly bombarded in culture, which is a good thing. And then sometimes it can be a bad thing. There was many days I came home and it wasn't necessarily I wanted to speak English to somebody. It's I wanted to speak to somebody that thought like me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of time, and I'm not blaming them for, I mean, a lot of times they're in an impoverished mindset. They only make $4 a day. They're going to keep every scrap, every this, because I'm looking at it. I'm like, guys, let's throw this away. We're spending more time fixing this tool. If we just went, maybe if we rounded up some money and bought another, oh no, it's too expensive. So we got to keep using this one. And finally I was like, I'll donate this tool so we can just hurry up and finish this project. But, there's a lot of things that come into it because, just the books I've read after I already had my big culture shock was, you're going and it's like an out of womb experience. When a baby is born, they want to give it to the mom as quick as possible. Now I know there's certain situations that can't happen, but they want the baby to bond immediately with this mother. And so when you come into this new world, you're like an infant and you're just every sight, every sound, you're taking it all in. And as I tell people, there's a honeymoon phase. Like you're going to love it. And even the bad things aren't going to be bad. Like, oh, it was 110 today and we don't have air conditioning. Oh, but no big deal. It's fine. We love it here. God's called us, you deal with that. But then eventually you start learning like an infant. You're trying to learn to do different things. But, I have a toddler right now and he gets frustrated when he can't do something. When he's trying to take a toy out of one of those jars and it needs to be turned sideways, but yet he's just banging it against it like he's just screaming. It frustrates himself. And that's where we find ourselves. We just get frustrated. Like we don't understand why things are the way they are. Like, why do I have to go to the bank to pay the taxes on my car? I have to wait in a 2-hour line. I've got other things to do. I've got kids to pick up from school and I've got this and that. Why is it like that? And then as you get into the language and you can't communicate yourself, like, what? I just want to be able to tell you how I feel, but I can't. It's almost like a baby, you got to learn how to talk. And so that's where the culture comes in. You have to learn everything over again. And it's hard. It's very hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying you'll go through depression or anything like that. If you prepare yourself, if you prepare yourself for this culture and you do your homework, you'll be all right. A lot of times it's like a doctor going to school. They put in all the work there. Then the first time they go to the ER and somebody comes in with a bad bleed, they may hit the floor. They may pass out. That happens. But that doctor gets used to it. And then, years later, maybe even a couple of weeks later, he's prepared for the job. Blood doesn't bother him anymore. And now he has the knowledge and he has the experience. So a lot of times we can have the knowledge of this culture, but when we get there, it might be kind of throw us for a curve, but we've studied a little bit. We kind of know it a little bit better. And a lot of this only reason how we overcame it was through the help of the Holy Spirit. Like we knew he knew Jesus sent us there. Like we knew for a purpose. And that was our main thing is we know we're called here. Yeah. We know we're called. He can help. So, and us, it's like Holy Spirit, just give me understanding and just give me peace. But, we'll have peace to the people out there, but then we'll just be building up inside of us. And when we get home, we got all this frustration. Kind of like you said about the driving, my gosh, they just did this. I've had people cut me off all day, and you've held it in because you just wanted to blow on the horn. You wanted to holler at somebody. You've held it in. Then when you get home, your wife is there, or your kids are there, and they do just the littlest things, and you want to blow up at them. So it's a learning curve. You have to learn to deal with your frustrations. You have to learn to deal with your emotions, and don't be afraid to talk about your emotions or your frustrations. God gave you a spouse, a blessing for a reason. You can talk to each other. Mm-hmm. You can talk to the Lord. You can give him all your cares and all your burdens. And what I highly recommend from anybody is I'm such a big fan of what you're doing here and trying to get this support for missionaries is, have somebody in your corner that you can call and be like, or just go back to like, oh my, it's just so tough today. It's incredibly tough. We don't know how we're going to do it tomorrow. Just so that they can talk you down. Because sometimes we'll talk ourselves and we're about to jump off that cliff. Yeah. I just, know what? It's okay. We've all been there. We've all wanted to quit. We've all wanted to throw in the towel, but it's okay. It's okay. You're going to have bad days. And it took us, it isn't going to be a week thing. You can learn it, but then having to integrate yourself in it and adapt to it is a whole nother thing. And that takes time. That takes process, just like it takes time for a baby to learn to walk. It's going to take time. What we said earlier, unrealistic expectations. Don't think you're going to go somewhere and learn the language in a week and learn the culture in 2 days. Just take your time, take it all in, learn as much as you can, because the more you can learn, the more you can prepare yourself. And then when that ministry door opens, you'll know way more. You know cues, what not to do, what to do, and mm-hmm. you can better represent Christ to this person. So, the culture shock, it did make me in feelings kind of feel depressed. Mine wasn't really so depressed. My wife dealt with depression. Mine was just frustration and anger, kind of like you said with the driving. Mine was just frustration and anger. And, so I had to learn to channel that, not to my family when I got home, because it wasn't their fault. They weren't out in it. I had to learn to, okay, I've got to learn to deal with this. This is just the culture here. They mean nothing by it. I've got to learn to live in it. And then this frustration, I have to learn to do something else with it. Go take a walk, get the machete and go help the boys cut the grass out there, whatever it takes, but don't take that home, because as I say, I'm not going to try to win all of Honduras and lose my family. Yeah. I'm not going to come home and, let just give them the brunt end of everything. But yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, and like I said, it's definitely real.
Yeah. In the book, he suggests that you got to give yourself a year. I'm not going to say it's going to take a year, but he said that many times missionaries will want to quit, and that he says that you should at least give it 1 year and just go through it. By the end of the year, your mental, emotional state will have improved greatly. And then for several months on end, it may seem like life will never get better, but you'll likely find that turning point at the end of the year. Now, kind of as what you were saying, what I've saw in my life is that you learn to kind of dodge and weave, if that makes sense. You just learn, okay, I got to go to the hardware store, but it's going to close at 12 before lunch. So I got to go now. You just kind of learn this type of stuff. You kind of learn, like you said, with the bank. I bank at a bank here that's online is great. So I literally never go to the bank. Everything's transferred down. I do everything. I pay all my bills through the banking, and then I use the ATM machine. I never go inside. So, these are just things I've learned. And then you just kind of learn how to kind of dodge and weave on the way the society runs as far as stores, what stores is going to have what's this, that. And now it's like just life is normal to me now. I'm not saying I'm living like a gringo now, like an American here. I kind of live like a Honduran and flow in that society. And it's like normal to me. So, right. But it took time to get there. And now I just I know how to flow in the society, and I have a very peaceful life. So I think you just have to be willing to give it that time. And one thing that you said, you knew you were called there, and you allowed the Holy Spirit to give you that peace. And then the other important thing was having someone you could talk to, our spouses, but sometimes they're going through the same thing. So someone in the United States, like a trusted friend, or like your pastor, somebody that you could trust. A lot of churches have like care teams. So there's an individual that is assigned to care for your family that you can go and talk to. Here in Honduras, we had HFMM. They had a care team, like Marcy Finn and other people we could talk to. They would actually even come and sit down and talk with your family and help you walk you through this process. So there's a lot of ways to reach out. I'm just going to read some of these things, practical steps to overcome culture shock. Take some time to get away. I know sometimes it's hard if you are on a limited budget or you have a large family, but take some time to get away. I know that we would, go to Guatemala, or we would go to, San Pedro Sula. And before we picked up a mission team, we would stay at an Airbnb just to kind of be able to go to a nice shopping or something like that. Find someone.
That's exactly what we did when you said San Pedro Sula. Coming from where we were kind of in the same neck of the wood. You go to San Pedro Sula and you're like, it's like I went to a different country here. They have everything here, and that's what we did. And I want to tell people, when you said get away, it's everywhere in ministry. People are afraid to take a break because they're afraid I leave, or if I go away for a week or two, like, who will run the ministry? It'll fail. If I take a break, it'll fail. Well, if God's in charge of it, he'll make sure it gets by, because you're not the one in charge. You're not the person it falls on. It goes back to him. Mm-hmm. So if the ministry is meant to last, he'll make it last. You don't have to. So I want to just say, somebody might need to hear that is, don't feel bad for going and relaxing on the mission field. Like, we didn't do that. We might go to San Pedro Sula every once in a while, but we rarely took vacations there. Like, when we came home for furlough, we would try to get away for a few days, because we'd be like, we can't take a vacation on the mission break on the mission field, because this is where we're supposed to be working. That's where you have a family. It took me years to realize that this is where we have a family. It's like, I may not be here forever, and I want to enjoy where God's got me right now. So then we started, we went to Roatan. We got to see the island, and then we kind of go around up in the mountains. And that's what I tell people, go see where you're at, because you might be in the desert somewhere. Well, go up to the mountains for a weekend and see the mountains of that country, or go to the coast. Don't look back. You might be there 5, 10, 15 years, however long. You'd be like, man, I never got to the country. Man, I always see it. And if you have kids, take them and let them see things, because nobody on their deathbed's going to be like, I wish I wouldn't have traveled as much. I wish I wouldn't have there and spent time with my family. Nobody's going to say that. So never feel bad for getting away and trying to rest so you can better yourself in ministry.
Yeah. And then some other things is like, find someone who can serve as a local culture guide, someone that, help you understand more so about culture. Get
Right.
active in ministry. Obviously, you should be getting active in ministry because that's what you're there for. Get out of the house. One thing that I do on a consistent basis, I work from home a lot because of what I do for ministry. So I'll go on walks. I'll do walks in the afternoon, and that helps me break up the monotony. I guess exercise, make friends of other foreign missionaries. That's one thing that I know, at least for us, we're the only missionaries here. I don't know of any other missionaries in Copanrinas, but like in San Pedro Sula, there are communities of like subdivisions where a lot of missionaries move to. So make friends of other missionaries. Go ahead.
That's what we would do to help people. Like where we were at, we were the only Americans, but then there was a school that sometimes they would have teachers come for a year. And that's what we'd find them going through this culture shock, like school not starting on time, just all the stuff involved in the school that for the sake of time, I won't mention it, but we would open up our home to them and be like, you know what? Well, just come here and we'll do hamburgers. We'll have an American meal with French fries, and you can speak English. You don't have to worry about speaking Spanish. So, I mean, that's good if that's available, just to have that time, just to go into somebody else's house that gets it and understands, and you can just speak your heart to them. But if it's there, take advantage of it.
Yeah. And then we've got make local friends. I know sometimes, Americans have a propensity to kind of be cliquish, so to speak, make local friends, find things that you enjoy about the country, recognize that you don't have to love everything about the country, maintain some ties to your home culture, and then maintain a strong relationship with God. So, again, just kind of summarize this is, one, prepare before you go, get books, read, find friends. Maybe, if you're like in a larger community, find friends of that culture, take multiple trips to the place that you want to become a missionary. And then, again, read books. And then once you get there, you need to take the steps of just, knowing that God placed you there, having someone that you can talk to, and then, the practical steps that we just went over, and giving it a year, just letting God work with you, give it a year. And then, like I said, I've been here 8 years going on 9. And I mean, like life is just, it's normal. It's just normal. I don't even think about it anymore, but I just know how to kind of dodge and weave through the culture. I understand the culture a lot more so. And I just have peace and joy of just being here. So, I just think you got to give it some time and God will see you through it.
Right. And that's what a missionary told me before we went. He said, and this isn't what I tell people by any means. I'm kind of with you. Everybody's a little different. So I can't say it takes this amount of time.
Yeah.
But he said, don't do anything for language and culture. And he said, after that first year, you can do all the ministry you want. But he said, just for the first year, do that. And it was, like I told you, that for that first couple weeks, months, it was like a honeymoon. And then, like you said, we hit a funk and it was, Lord, are we going to make it? Are we really called here? And then once you get to about that year, you start making connections, you start having friendships. And when you talked about making local friends, that was one of the biggest things for us, is making local friends. It took them a while. I mean, it took some of them almost 2 years to really trust me. But once they did, and that's the cultural thing in Honduras, and they even say that, it's like, we're hard. We don't like trusting people, but once you have our trust, you have it. And so once I got their trust, we made some of the best friendships I've ever made in my life. Even though we're not living there, I still talk to them daily. Some of them, when my wife had to have an emergency surgery to take out her appendix, we had to go up to the hospital in the middle of the night. And so we had to give our 2 young kids to our next door neighbor. But we made such a friendship with them. We were able to do that. And it, like I said, village mentality, they called people, and there was other people come up there to help with our kids. And then the husband of the next door neighbor, my friend, he rode with us to the hospital. And he said, I was telling him, thank you, just watch the kids. He's like, oh no, I'm going with you. I was like, okay, let's go. And he went up there, and I know you kind of probably know the hospitals there, but my wife was in the bed. I was in a small couch, and he slept on the floor.
Wow.
Said, I don't want to leave y'all. I want to be here for y'all. And he slept on the floor. So, I mean, we would not. And when our house was robbed one time, they were there. We had people we could call, and they could, give us good wisdom and pray for us. But it's what I learned, like some of us learned over COVID when we couldn't do these things, was a hug, was an actual touch of affirmation. Those little things, just a hug, just to hear a laugh, and just to have those connections. That's what I miss the most of all from Honduras, living there. We still do the ministry, but it's the people I miss. And I know they'll aggravate you, and it'll feel like, why, God, did you send me here to these people?
Yeah.
But like, if you just take the time, don't rush the process, don't get ahead of God, take your time, take it all in, because you will fall in love with some people, and you'll find yourself going there a foreigner. And if God calls you out of that country, you'll leave part of a family. Amen. And that's what happened. Our family just grew. I say we don't have friends, and I don't have co-workers there. I have family in Honduras. So
Amen. That's awesome.
I kind of hammer that one home is make friends around you. If there's a local church there, make friends in that local church, Christians that you can trust. I know that might be difficult in some countries that, maybe Christianity is kind of illegal or they're being persecuted. But if you can get involved with local believers, national local believers, that would be one of the biggest things that could help you just with your Christian walk. And as we're talking about just culture there. But
okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate you jumping on this Zoom call and helping us understand culture shock. And God bless you, brother, and you guys' work and your continued work in Honduras.
Oh, thank you. And I said it was a pleasure. If y'all ever need anything again, if there's anybody out there that needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out. There's people around you that want to see you succeed. And like I said, you've got a lot of people cheering you on. But once again, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Amen. Amen. Well, thanks a lot, brother. Bye-bye.